Hello, welcome back to Tottenham Logic TV. The Tottenham fan base are very divided at the moment. A lot of Spurs fans are now saying Ange out after the 2-1 defeat to Newcastle, which Tottenham dominated but couldn't put away their chances. Tottenham fans are saying we're too vulnerable at the back and too easy to play through. Today, I want to do a video on a comparison of Tottenham's last visit to St James's Park, where we lost 4-0, and compare the stats and the metrics to the 2-1 defeat that was most recently on Sunday. I also want to compare our next fixture, who is going to be Arsenal. I want to compare their stats against Newcastle in their most recent meeting there at St James's Park. I also want to talk about a few players that have been mentioned that don't turn up against top 10 sides. And I just want to read out a few stats there as well, just to put a bit more positivity into the Spurs fan base if I can. And then we'll go from there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading out some stats. But before I do, please smash that subscribe button and please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. I'm going to say Ange's first game. He's had 2 games at St James's Park. So I'm going to say Ange's first game, which was the 4-0, and Ange's second game, which is the 2-1, the most recent. So then it's easier just to read it out for you. So in Ange's first game at St James's Park against Newcastle, Newcastle had 18 shots, Tottenham had 11. And in the most recent game, in the second game, Newcastle had 9 shots and Tottenham had 20. So already you can see a massive difference in the metrics, where now Newcastle have had 50% less shots already from a few months ago when we played them last. So defence already has improved. Tottenham had an extra 9 shots at goal. Obviously the finishing hasn't improved, but we've had an extra 9 shots. So the attacking metrics and creating chances has improved. So shots on target. Newcastle in the first game had 5 shots on target. Tottenham had 2. In the second game, Newcastle had 3 shots on target. Tottenham had 6. So again, improvements on shots on target, but just not going for us on the day. So Newcastle had 5 big chances in the first game compared to the 2 they had in the second game. Corners for Newcastle in the first game were 16. Tottenham only had 3 corners in the first game. In the second game, Newcastle had 7 corners and Tottenham had 12. So that's completely reversed almost compared to the first game. Shots inside the box. Newcastle had 16 shots inside the box to Tottenham's 6 in the first game. And in the second game, Newcastle had 6 to Tottenham's 9. So Tottenham went up 3 and Newcastle went down by 10. So again, defensively, or keep hold of the ball or keeping it in midfield is working in this system. It's starting to improve. So we can go on to passes. Passes don't mean too much if you don't do nothing with the passes, but I do a little bit with the passes. In the first game, Newcastle had 189 passes. Tottenham had 575. In the second game, Newcastle had 261 and Tottenham had 500. So the pass rate has gone down, but we were creating a lot more passes and creating a lot more chances with less passes. So we're more direct now in the second game. So accurate passes is 123 for Newcastle in the first game and 183 in the second. Tottenham had 498 and then the second game 421. So accurate passes went down. And this is what I think contributed to not creating as many more chances as we should have. Because when we were making poor decisions, like for example, Brennan Johnson was out on the right-hand side, 3 acres of space. Kulusevski decided to play inside to Sonny. And, you know, that's another pass that we misplaced. So that could have easily been an easy pass out. So decision making was a lot poorer in the second game than it was in the first. So if we go into keeper saves now, well, no, just do clearances first. Newcastle had to clear the ball 22 times in the first game. Tottenham had to clear it 15. In the second game, Newcastle had to clear it 31 times and Tottenham was 14. So ours has gone down by 1, theirs has gone up by 9. So keeper saves. In the first game, Newcastle goalkeeper had to save just twice from our attacking play. It was only tested him twice and we only had 1 to save. In the second game, Newcastle had 6. The goalkeeper had 6 saves to make. We tested him 6 times, and they only tested Vicario once, but the other 2 were goals, obviously. Duels won. So in the first game, Newcastle's duels won were 48, and Tottenham's were 45. So they were winning, they were battling, and were tackling better than we were. In the second game, duels won 47 for Newcastle and 61 for Spurs. So that is again has improved. So we're winning more duels now in a match against the same opponents at the same ground. Ground duels won in the first game for Newcastle was 34 to Tottenham's 38. So we were winning more ground duels in the first game by 4. Then in the second game, Newcastle won 36 ground duels, Tottenham won 47. So again, an increase in ground duels. Aerial duels won. Newcastle completely dominated us in aerial duels in the first game, 14-7. In the second game, Newcastle got 11, Tottenham got 14. So then we improved on our aerial duels as well. So another metric that's improved. Successful dribbles was 10-10 in the first game and 8-10 in Tottenham's favour. So we was having more dribbles as well. Okay, so looking at all of those stats, ANGE-BALL has improved from last season already from that one result. You can go back to Leicester and Everton as well. We're conceding less chances. We're creating more chances. We're conceding less shots on goal. We're creating more shots on goal. I'd be more worried if we wasn't creating any chances and we was conceding more chances. But the stats are not lying. It's very clear that the only metric missing is finishing at the moment. If we can get our finishing in, remember we didn't have Solanke and Richarlison. It's no excuse because teams have players missing all the time. But a Solanke or Richarlison could have made the difference, and we might see in future games that they will make a difference. But we can't tell until Solanke gets a run of games. I also now want to compare Arsenal's last visit to St James's Park last season, when they obviously went on to nearly win the title, and I believe that this year they are one of the favourites as well. And so that score finished 1-0. And by the way, Newcastle didn't have Alexander Isak playing either, or Harvey Barnes, so they were quite depleted in attack. Newcastle ended up winning 1-0, and their goal came from a ball over the top. A bit of confusion in the box, another cross came in, and a goal scored by Anthony Gordon. I think it was quite controversial because Arsenal said the ball went out of play or something. But it started with a ball over the top because Arsenal play a high line, and that happens when you play a high line. When you're an attacking team, you're always going to be vulnerable at the back. Every team is. Aston Villa play a high line. They're vulnerable at the back. It's not ANGE-BALL is the problem. It's playing a high line. Lots of teams do it. Man City play a high line. They got punished. Ipswich scored against Manchester City this season. Does that mean Man City's system doesn't work? West Ham scored against Man City this season. Does that mean Man City's system don't work? The difference is Man City are going up the other end and scoring more goals. And that's the whole point of ANGE-BALL, to score more goals than your opposition. So anyway, let's compare the Arsenal stats. We'll compare the Arsenal's most recent stats to Tottenham's most recent stats. We'll do it this way, yeah? So shots on target for us was 20. Arsenal had 14. Shots on target for the shots in total, sorry. Total shots. It was 9 for us and 20 for us and 9 for Newcastle. 14 for Arsenal, 9 for Newcastle. So they were conceding the same amount of shots as we did on Sunday. Yeah. Shots on target. Newcastle had 3 shots on target against us and 2 against Arsenal. Newcastle scored their other shot on target and they scored the other 2 shots on target against us. Yeah, so the metrics are sort of similar already. Big chances created, Newcastle had 2 against us and 1 against Arsenal, and I'm assuming that's the big chance that they scored. So big chances, corners now. Spurs had 12 corners against Newcastle. Newcastle had 7. Arsenal had 11 corners and Newcastle had 0. So Arsenal were dominating this game, but couldn't find a way through. They had 11 corners and still couldn't find a way through. And you've got to remember the shots on target Arsenal had. Did I say that? Arsenal only had 1 shot on target, by the way, in this game. To Tottenham's 6, by the way. So Arsenal had 11 corners and didn't get any shots on target. Yeah. So shots inside the box. We had 9 shots inside the box. Arsenal had 5. Yeah. Newcastle had 5 against Arsenal and 6 against us. So again, similar stats. If you go to touches in the opposition, Newcastle had 14 against us and 16 against Arsenal. We had 50 touches inside the box against Newcastle. Arsenal had 31. So already you can see the domination from us against Newcastle on Sunday was probably even more than what Arsenal were doing. Arsenal deserved to beat Newcastle on this day, I believe. And they still lost 1-0. Tottenham have peppered the goal more against Newcastle than Arsenal did and still lost as well. This wasn't down, both of these games weren't down to both teams having poor defences or both teams not playing well enough. It went down to not finishing. Yeah, Newcastle in both games played very defensively. And the only way Newcastle are going to get past your team is if they kick it over the top or play it through. That's the only way they can score. They're not going to do 1-2s around you and all this sort of stuff. It's because they're playing defensively, and the only way a defensively minded team can play against you is either a counter attack or kick the ball long. That's the only thing they can do, and that's what they did against both of us. So if you go to clearances, Newcastle had to do 31 clearances against Spurs and 26 against Arsenal on that day. Keeper saves. We tested the keeper 6 times, as we said earlier in the video. Arsenal only tested the keeper once. In 90 minutes, tested the goalkeeper once at St James's Park in the most recent one. Remember, they went on to challenge for the Premier League and was a couple of points away from winning it, and their metrics were a lot lower than ours. Yeah? Duels won. So, like we said earlier, there was 61 duels won for Spurs and 47 for Newcastle, and only 46 duels won for Arsenal and 47 for Newcastle. So Newcastle were winning more duels than Arsenal. Ground duels won. 36 for Newcastle, 47 for Spurs, 34 for Newcastle, 32 for Arsenal. Can you see where I'm going here? They were winning more duels. They were battling harder than Arsenal. Aerial duels won. 11 for Newcastle, 14 for Tottenham, 13 for Newcastle, 14 for Arsenal. So they did win on aerial duels. Successful dribbles is 7 and 7. 7-7. So can you see my point a little bit about Arsenal are seen now as a very, very good side, especially last season. They were one of the favourites to win the Premier League. They struggled at St James's Park. The only thing that was the similar in both of those games was Tottenham and Arsenal. Well, I'd say no. Arsenal only had 1 shot on target. So the difference in these games was Tottenham just didn't put away their chances. If Tottenham put away their chances, this game would have been long gone before that Joel Linton put the ball through. It must have been very frustrating for Postecoglou to watch, because the domination, as you know from all the stats I just read out, we was on every metric better than Newcastle, on every metric near enough. We were better than them in every way. It was just the finishing and decision making, in my opinion. You can blame it on our defence all you want, but we're conceding a lot less chances than we were before. And if you're saying that they counter-attacked us, the first goal wasn't a counter-attack and it was nothing to do with ANGE-BALL. That could have happened to anyone. And the second one was we were going for the win. How many times have we been under Conte and Mourinho and sat there and played for the draw when we could have gone for the win. And with Sonny and Kane up front, and we weren't going for the win. And with Ange, he hasn't even got Kane, and he's going trying to win the game. That's why we were open at the back. Any attacking team that tries to win the game are going to be open at the back. That's what happens. Any attacking team, I don't care who you are. If Man City are trying to get the win against Real Madrid and Real Madrid counter them, is it their system that's a problem, or on the day was they trying to win the game? And I honestly believe on the day they were trying to win the game and they got opened up. Yes, that can be improved, but every goal you concede, there's obviously an issue. Every team concedes goals. Man City have conceded a goal nearly every game this season. They've conceded to Ipswich and West Ham as well. Ipswich have just come up and they've already scored. Does that mean Man City's defence is a problem? No, it doesn't. It just means they're scoring more down the other end because they've got bloody robot up front. Haaland putting all the chances away. We had that robot. We had Kane, and he used to put all the chances away. We haven't got that anymore, and we're still trying to adapt. We haven't had Solanke for the last 2 games. Hopefully he can be the answer and he can start scoring some goals, and things will start looking a bit rosier. I honestly believe that. Let me just quickly go through a few players that have been touted that they've not turned up against the top 10 sides. So I just want to say that Johnson has, this is all last season under Ange, by the way, so I'm not going to go back any further than that because this was all under the Ange system. Johnson has got an assist against Liverpool, a goal against West Ham, a goal against Aston Villa, assist against Manchester City. Palace finished in the top 10, by the way, and he's got 3 assists in 2 games against Palace. Brighton just finished out of the top 10, but I honestly think they should be a top 10 side. He scored a goal against Brighton as well. Okay. Kulusevski, last season, got an assist against Aston Villa. He got a goal and an assist against Manchester City. He scored against Chelsea. Fun fact about Kulusevski is he scored 5 goals and assists, so 5 goal contributions in the last 5 games against Manchester City. But people are saying that he doesn't turn up for big games. What bigger game can you have than Man City? And he's got 5 goal contributions in those 5 games. I really don't know what more you want this guy to do. Richarlison, he was another one named. So Liverpool, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist. Then Man United, he scored a goal. Newcastle, he scored 2 goals. Another game against Liverpool, got an assist. These are all top 8 teams, not top 10, and he's turned up for them as well. Odegaard, I'm not even gonna say he's only played 2 games this season for Spurs. You can't start looking at his stats already and saying he's not performing. He's only played Newcastle as a big team or top 10 side or whatever. But last season for Burnley side that got relegated basically, or fighting relegation, scored against Brighton and scored against Chelsea. Okay, that's two top 10 sides again. So Brighton are a very good side, even though they didn't finish 10th last season. But they're a very good side. He scored against both of them. So that's only going on last season metrics for Burnley. We can't judge them until this season's obviously gone on. So after looking at all these stats and metrics and player stats and everything like that, it doesn't look so bad. The only problem, like I keep saying, is we just need to finish our chances, just need to finish our dinner. We just need to get that clinical edge on us and things will start looking better. We absolutely dominated the first 3 games. We should have been out of sight against Leicester, should have been out of sight against Newcastle. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, doesn't mean anything. You still didn't get the points. I understand that. But I'm talking about the overlooking the whole issue. It's not you can't just look at all those stats and just go, oh, it's the defence that's a problem. Because in my opinion, we're conceding less chances. We're creating more chances. We're having more possession than we were last season so far. And it's just ludicrous at the moment to say sack Ange Postecoglou, because sacking a manager every time before he's even had a chance to implement anything is ridiculous. What are we going to do? Bring in the next guy, and if he loses the first 6 out of 10 because he's trying to implement a new style or something, then we're going to say him out next as well. It doesn't work. The last time we kept a manager for longer than 2 summers, it was Pochettino, and he got us to a Champions League final and a title race. because we gave him time. I don't know what else to say. Like, if you want Ange out, that's fine. It's your opinion. If you don't like the way he plays, that's your opinion. But he's had one season. Klopp got the same discrimination on his first season. Pep was even getting it. If anybody can go back and look at Pep's first season with Man City, I think they lost 4-0 to Everton at one stage, and they said tiki-taka football doesn't work in the Premier League. They ended up finishing third with a really good run at the end. But at the beginning of that season, he was even getting ridiculed. Arteta, Arsenal fans wanted him sacked for the first 3 years. Ange has been here for one. And already I can see massive improvements just in the metrics from last season. Not to mention that we had so many injuries last season, and he's trying to implement a style on players that are not even there. So how is he going to do it? They're not even in training. Do you know what I mean? So Arteta took to his fourth season. Yes, he won FA Cup in the first year. I'm not forgetting that or disregarding it. But I'm talking about Premier League growth. And it took him to the fourth season to finish second. And it was a very, very good season. It just tailed off at the end. It's not all doom and gloom at Spurs, and we should not be saying Ange out and just jumping on our players every 5 minutes. It doesn't help at all. Nothing helps the club when all you're saying is you're not good enough all the time. I've heard some people say Ange is a good manager, but then in the second breath saying that he should be gone. He's a good manager, and we just need to give him more time. He hasn't been here for 24 years. Levy has. He hasn't. He's told us, these are the players I want. This is the system I'm going to play. I have the final say on everything. So let him have the final say and just let him succeed or fail. Let him do what he's got to do. I believe he will succeed. I'm seeing a growth in Spurs in this second season, the same growth I saw when Pochettino had his second season. I can see it. So if you can't see it, you can't see it yet, but you will. I honestly believe it. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of everything I've spoken about today, all the stats, all the players that I've mentioned as well. And let me know if you think you're still a bit positive about this season, or do you want Ange out? Let me know. Come on, you Spurs.